Hi everyone, welcome back to Growing Up in Scientology. So the question I want to tackle today has to do with this concept of what's true is what's true for you. This is a saying that exists in Scientology. This is something you'll hear Scientologists say. This is also something that the Church of Scientology likes to say in response to non-Scientologists who ask them questions on social media about some of the more outlandish or crazier beliefs of Scientology. Is whoever's running these accounts responds by saying, well, L. Ron Hubbard said that something is only true if it's true for you. So what does this quote from L. Ron Hubbard really mean to Scientologists? It's pretty simple, and I'll do my best to briefly explain. So this question has come up several times in the supporters of Leah Remini group on Facebook, and I'm doing my best to take some of the questions that come up there most often and address them in these short one question, one answer videos. I have seen a bunch of misinformation about what this quote means to Scientologists. The quote is, what's true is what's true for you. And this quote or this rule is repeated several different places in Scientology. And the most common misunderstanding of what this means is that Scientologists think that whatever they think is true about anything is true, and Scientologists are just expected to accept as true anything anyone says as long as it's true for them. Like someone could say, well, I think the world is flat. And another Scientologist could come up and say, well, that's stupid. The world's obviously round. And the first Scientologist could say, well, it's true for me, and therefore it's true. And the other Scientologist would have to be like, oh, fair point. Fair point, you're good. You do you. And that's actually not what this quote means. And it's funny because a lot of these question and answer videos, I'm explaining something that ends up making Scientology look negative. And in this particular video, I'm sort of clarifying this quote is not quite as bad as it has most often been interpreted. So here's what it's really supposed to mean to Scientologists. It's actually one of those things that gets applied to brand new Scientologists, lower level Scientologists, introductory level Scientologists, to prevent them from leaving right away. Because the fact is, when you become a real Scientologist and you're doing major courses, and a major course, the definition of a major course is just any course that's not an introductory course. An introductory course can cost $50, $100, $200, and can take a few days. Major courses cost closer to $1,000 or more and take weeks full time. So in the introductory course room, you have special course supervisors. And when I say special, I just mean they do a different course supervisor course for their own personal training, and they are taught to handle their students differently in the introductory course room than you would in the major course room. And so in the introductory course room, this is something that the course supervisors are taught to use liberally when students read things and they're like, huh? Like, it's one thing if someone goes, I don't understand what this means. The course supervisor is supposed to help them figure out what it actually means. It's another thing if someone goes, I know what this means, and I disagree with this. I think this is bullshit. Well, at the introductory level, the course supervisor is allowed to go, that's okay. None of this, you don't have to accept any of this as true just because it's in your course pack or just because L. Ron Hubbard wrote it. Everything you study here is just information for your own examination. And none of this is true unless it's true for you. You don't have to accept any of this as true unless you yourself have examined it and decided for yourself it's true. No one's going to force any of this on you. Okay, that's only true in the introductory course rooms. That is absolutely not a datum that is used or applied to mainline, mainstream Scientologists, people who've been around, people who are in the academy, the major course room. And that is why you see Scientology social media accounts trotting out this little datum. It's only true if it's true for you. They are using that datum on people on social media the same way a basic courses course supervisor would use that datum on a brand new introductory student. And that at least explains how that piece of information is used within Scientology. I definitely want to discredit the idea that Scientologists think that because L. Ron Hubbard wrote these words, what's true is what's true for you, or it's only true if it's true for you. that Scientologists think they can just create their own version of reality and no one else is allowed to tell them that they're wrong because they have decided it's true. That being said, good luck trying to convince a Scientologist that something they are thoroughly convinced is true is not true. You're probably not going to have much success doing that. But it's not because of this quote. I specifically recall two different places where Hubbard talks about this, what's true is what's true for you. The place this is most commonly seen is in the introductory section of every basic introductory course to Scientology. There's like a little blurb in the front, and the blurb is an excerpt from an actual bulletin or a policy letter. And it's where he says just something to the effect of, nothing I have written in Scientology is true just because I said it's true. It's only true if it's true according to your own observation. And I was going to say that the second place I recall it is from an article Hubbard wrote called Personal Integrity. But the fact is, the blurb in the beginning of the course is probably just an excerpt directly from this essay on personal integrity. So I pulled that up on my laptop here and I'm just going to read it. So this is called Personal Integrity. Oh, and actually this fits into a video I uploaded a day or two ago about Scientology Sunday services. I think the name of that video was, Why Does Scientology Use a Cross? This article on personal integrity is read in the beginning of every Scientology Sunday service. So here it is. What is true for you is what you have observed yourself. And when you lose that, you have lost everything. What is personal integrity? Personal integrity is knowing what you know is what you know, and to have the courage to know and to say what you have observed. That is integrity, and there is no other integrity. Of course, we can talk about honor, truth, nobility, all these things as esoteric terms, but I think they would all be covered very well if what we really observed was what we observed, that we took care to observe what we were observing, that we always observed to observe, and not necessarily maintaining a skeptical attitude, a critical attitude, or an open mind, not necessarily maintaining these things at all, but certainly maintaining enough sufficient personal integrity and sufficient personal belief and confidence in self and courage that we can observe what we observe and say what we have observed. Okay. Nothing in Scientology is true for you unless you have observed it, and it is true according to your own observation. That is all. L. Ron Hubbard. Now, I will say that I recall when I would sit in Sunday service and hear this being read, I had a very specific idea of why this thing was being emphasized. And even though I was someone who already at this point very much believed in Scientology, I dedicated my life to delivering Dianetics in Scientology. I've been working for the Church of Scientology for an awfully long time. I swear to God, I'm being honest when I say that when I would hear this essay being read, the only thing I would think as this was being read aloud was, wow, they really, really, really don't want anybody to believe anything anybody says about Scientology. Like, it's kind of funny that that's how I interpreted the purpose of this essay, even when I was a true believer. I think you'll agree that the emphasis on this is more not letting people convince you that something you already have observed for yourself is in fact not true. The emphasis on this isn't, and therefore you get to just go around deciding what absolute truth is, and no one's allowed to tell you otherwise. And you should never allow yourself to, open up your mind to learning some version of absolute truth that is different than what you yourself already believe. I think this essay really has a Scientology bent. I mean, it does say, nothing in Scientology is true for you unless you have observed it. And it is true according to your observation. But I really do think overall this has a Scientology bent of, if you go through auditing or courses and you have wins, don't let anyone try to convince you that you didn't. And it's interesting because superficially, that sounds like great advice, right? I mean, that sounds sort of like an maybe self-empowering kind of thing. But honestly, there is such a thing as anecdotal evidence. And anecdotal evidence is shitty, terrible evidence. And this is something, it's embarrassing to even say this out loud. I did not understand that until after I left Scientology. It's just cringeworthy. I genuinely believed that anecdotal evidence was the highest standard of evidence because of this essay, because of this concept of integrity and how it is defined, That integrity is holding true to what you yourself have observed and experienced, at least as far as it applies to Scientology, except your own experience, your own direct experience with something is anecdotal. Somebody has to be willing to understand and acknowledge and deal with the fact that just because something helped them doesn't even mean it's helpful. Much less does it mean it would help everyone. Just because it helped you doesn't even mean it's helpful. When you're doing tests of drugs or therapies and whatnot, you don't just have to prove that you can help people. You have to prove that you can help people more than the placebo effect helps people. You can give someone a sugar pill. You can do nothing for someone and convince them they have been helped, and they will genuinely improve a certain percentage of the time. And this is absolutely what happens in Dianetics and Scientology with auditing and various assists. Assists are these hands-on healing techniques that exist in Scientology. Is someone will be put in a situation where they are in an auditing session or they're receiving one of these assist processes, and they know eventually through education that this thing will not end until one feels better. And oftentimes what can happen is in an auditing session, someone just simply decides they don't want to be in this auditing session anymore. And instead of being like, oh, I don't want to be in this auditing session anymore, they know that's not going to work. They have to just feel better. And if you feel better, the auditing session will end. And oftentimes the result of simply trying to make yourself feel better is you genuinely feel better. And that is why when someone finishes a course, they get up in front of everybody and they tell their story on how it helped them. And when someone finishes an auditing action, they go out in front of everyone else who's getting auditing and they give a success story on how it helped them. Never mind the fact you're not allowed to finish the course or finish the auditing action without coming up with a success story. You're not allowed to progress until you write a success story. And never mind the fact that some of the basic principles of Scientology dictate that if Scientology doesn't work on you, meaning if you do a course and you do an auditing action and you're not thrilled with it, there's something wrong with you. So you have this pressure to feel better from Scientology courses and auditing. You have this sort of internal anecdotal pressure where everyone else, after they finish a course or finish auditing, is telling you how much it helped them. And then you have this pressure where you're not even allowed to finish until you write a success story. And this is all nothing but tons of anecdotal evidence. Some of the funniest examples of Scientology's anecdotal evidence exist online. You can find them on YouTube. It's these collections of success stories that are set to high tempo music and have fast cuts from person to person and then back to the same people over and over again, talking about how wonderful the golden age of tech is, or how wonderful the new grades processes are, or how wonderful the new Congress lectures are. I'm using words I don't want to define. I'm just giving examples. You'll find these things on YouTube. They're hilarious. And when I was in Scientology, I used to love those videos. And now I watch them and I'm like, God damn, how does this work on people? But it does work on people. And it's not just Scientology. This kind of anecdotal evidence gets used in the marketing propaganda for all sorts of companies and industries. I mean, one of the worst amongst them is the multi-level marketing industry, but I don't even want to open up that can of worms because I'm sure lots of people will be like, what? How dare you badmouth MLM? Unsubscribe, unsubscribe. But I'll tell you, the kind of rhetoric and propaganda that exists in the MLM industry, and I can't even believe I'm going down this road, so much reminds me of what exists in Scientology. And I mean, that's got to stand for something, okay? Spent an awful lot of time in Scientology. Multi-level marketing is extremely popular within Scientology. I think it's probably extremely popular within a lot of churchy, tight-knit groups. And now that I'm out of Scientology, the closest thing I encounter on a semi-regular basis that reminds me of Scientology is the world of MLM. I don't have some big point I'm making here. I'm just running my mouth. Okay, so back to the main point of the video. This quote, "What's true is what's true for you," is intended to only really apply to things in Scientology. And it's only really applied at the lower levels, because at the mid levels to upper levels, No, what L. Ron Hubbard says is true whether you goddamn agree or not. And if you don't agree, there's something wrong with you, and we're going to work you over the coals until you agree. It's only at the lower levels that you're allowed to go to someone, oh, that's okay. You don't have to believe that. If it's not true for you, then it's not true. All right, that's all I got for now. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.